Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank. I've got a rumor that the media might be a little cranky and they want me to hurry up to get to the governor, so I'm good with that, all right?
Dennis has a show to put on, so we got to hurry up.
Hi, Dennis. Well, thank you. This is really important what we're doing at the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank today. What I really want to say to the governor is thank you for elevating this issue. We've been talking a lot about the local food purchasing assistance program and the cut in funding that happened to that, which for our food bank equates to a lot of money, about $1.8 million over 15 months, $120,000 a month, 500,000 meals a month, not going to children, not going to the adults that we serve, and not economically not being provided from our local farmers who we acquire the wonderful food from to support the program. So, Governor, thank you. We absolutely appreciate you elevating this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. And Joe, let me just say how special it is for me to be back here. My wife, Lori, our First Lady, and I have volunteered here. This is such an unbelievably special place, and it's the place where I wanted to have this important conversation, an important conversation that needs to be had about making sure those in our community who are hungry get fed, and the farmers who provide that food get the respect and the check that they were counting on. We need to serve our communities and make sure that that those who are hungry get to eat, and that our farmers are able to provide this food. But unfortunately, over the last couple weeks, that work has gotten way harder because of a decision made by the federal government. And that same decision made by the federal government that's making it harder for folks who are hungry to get their food has also made it harder for our farmers. And I want to explain that. Since 2022, Pennsylvania food banks have come to expect critical funding from the federal government through an initiative called the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program. Really, really critical. That initiative helps food banks like this one here in central Pennsylvania purchase fresh produce directly from Pennsylvania farmers. So not only goes to help people like Joe and his team feed our neighbors, but it puts money in the pockets of farmers and opens up another market for their goods. Here in Pennsylvania, our Department of Agriculture, led by the great Secretary Russell Redding, administers that program and drives out the federal money to food banks and to farmers across our Commonwealth. And in just 2 years, we have driven out $28 million directly to our farmers, supporting 14 food banks and 189 farms and ag producers all across Pennsylvania. I want you to know this is a nationwide initiative, but what's unique about how we run it here in Pennsylvania is that every farm we support, every farm that provides food for places like the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, every single farm is a Pennsylvania farm. We keep every single dollar that we receive right here in our Commonwealth and on Pennsylvania farmlands, so we can do as much as possible to support our farmers and our ag industry. This funding goes to folks like Amy Brickner, who you're going to hear from in a moment, from Destiny Dairy Bar in Carlisle. And if you've never been there, stop by, and I guarantee you, anytime you stop by there, Russell Redding will be eating an ice cream cone when you're there. It goes to people like Ben Rice, who grows delicious apples in Adams County. And it goes to potato farmers like Leila Ricart from Sturman Masser in Schuylkill County. And all of that funding helps great local farmers, and in return, they provide fresh food to those who are hungry in our communities. It's a virtuous cycle, and it's been enormously successful over many years. So in December, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture signed a contract to extend that local food purchase agreement for another 3 years. That contract stated that the federal government would pay our farmers $13 million over the next 3 years so they could continue to supply food banks like this one with fresh food. Again, this wasn't some act of charity. This was a contract signed by the Department of Agriculture here in Pennsylvania with their counterparts in Washington. But earlier this month, we received notice that the U.S. Department of Agriculture, under the Trump administration, had decided to abruptly cancel our agreement. They didn't explain why, but in their letter to us, they only said that this initiative that feeds hundreds of thousands of Pennsylvanians and helps nearly 200 farmers across our Commonwealth, they said that that no longer, quote, aligns with their priorities. Those are their words, not mine. It's hard for me to see how partnering with our farmers and feeding people doesn't align with the federal government's priorities. But as a result of what I consider to be this unlawful action, 189 Pennsylvania farmers will lose a critical source of revenue, and 14 food banks across Pennsylvania will lose access to locally produced fresh foods. Here at the Central PA Food Bank, that means 500,000 fewer meals they can deliver to hungry Pennsylvanians every month. Understand that 1 in 5 children go to bed hungry at night. This decision by the federal government just made it harder to feed those children the way Joe and his team try to do every day. But it's not just here in central Pennsylvania. It's farms and food banks all across our Commonwealth, from dairy farms in Cumberland and Tioga and Westmoreland counties, to growers in Adams and Lehigh counties, to vegetable producers in Columbia County, and of course to our mushroom growers down in Chester County. This will have a statewide impact, both on the people who are hungry, who can't access the food that they need, and on farmers who try and deliver that food. It's my job as governor to protect Pennsylvania's interests, and I want you to know I will use every tool at my disposal to make sure that Pennsylvanians who are hungry get fed, that food banks like this have the stock that they need, and our farmers get a fair deal. So today, I've directed Secretary Russell Redding, on behalf of the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, to immediately appeal the USDA's decision to break this contract with Pennsylvania and illegally terminate this agreement. The appeal right exists under federal law, and we are exercising our appeal right here in Pennsylvania. My administration is demanding that the federal government rescind their termination notice and honor their obligations under this agreement that we signed just 4 months ago. Pennsylvania farmers and food banks are owed $13 million, and I won't stand by and let our farmers get screwed in the process. And if the USDA does not rescind this termination, hear me on this. We are prepared to take further legal action to protect our farmers and ensure those who are hungry get fed. You know, I've spent a lot of time visiting with farmers and listening and learning from them. As you know, agriculture is now one of 5 pillars of economic opportunity in Pennsylvania. Tomorrow I'll be at a dairy farm in Blair County talking about this issue. And I'm going to join in a couple weeks Chris Hoffman and his team at the Farm Bureau's annual luncheon in a few weeks. I want to take a moment to thank Chris Hoffman and the Farm Bureau for their outstanding advocacy for Pennsylvania farmers. And Chris, I want to just say on a personal note, I want to thank you for helping teach me. I want to thank you for helping educate me and my administration on the important work happening on Pennsylvania farms every single day. Your direct advocacy has led to meaningful change in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we are incredibly grateful to you. I want you to know our administration prioritizes agriculture because it's a critically important part of who we are in Pennsylvania, a rich part of our heritage, but also a critical part of the future of this Commonwealth and of our economy. Look, I know President Trump and his administration like to talk a big game about supporting our farmers. But some of the actions that we have seen over the last couple months coming out of the federal government like this one, it actually makes farmers' lives way more difficult in Pennsylvania. These unlawful cuts to vital programs that are here to feed people who are hungry, combined with the chaos and uncertainty that's come as a result of him pushing the button and levying tariffs on our friends and allies, including Mexico, which is one of the most important trading partners for Pennsylvania dairy farmers in particular. Well, all of these actions, all of the chaos he's created is doing real harm to our farmers. I'm not sure why the Trump administration is doing this to our ag community, but I want you to know here in Pennsylvania, we want to make clear that we give a damn about our farmers and we've got your backs. We are investing in our farmers at the state level with our Pennsylvania Farm Bill, with a new Ag Innovation Fund, with the Agriculture State Surplus Initiative, and so much more. We've been able to bring Republicans and Democrats together to show our farmers that here in Pennsylvania, we care about them. And to that end, I need to say a special thanks to your local representative, Representative Justin Fleming, who you'll hear from in a moment, who's really led the way in so many ways on these important ag investments. I think it's also important to note the presence of Representative Davidson and Representative Mattson, who also represent this community. But note the presence as well of Representative Salisbury, who joins us all the way from Allegheny County. They all understand just how critically important these issues are, and they've put up the votes to make sure our farmers are protected here in Pennsylvania. And know our farmers need to know that they and I continue to have your backs even in these challenging times. So Joe, thank you for welcoming me back here. I know that when we pack food in these boxes, it's packed with products that are coming directly from local farms, including one of our great local farmers, Amy Brickner, who is here from Destiny Dairy Bar in Carlisle. And Amy, I invite you up to say a few words now. Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Governor Shapiro. I am a dairy farmer. 3 years ago, I began bottling and selling my own milk on my family farm in Carlisle and in the local Carlisle area, with the hope to bring wholesome, nutritious food directly to my community and to connect the community with where their food comes from. Agriculture is Pennsylvania's #1 industry, and the dairy industry accounts for a large part of that. But still, milk is the #1 requested item at food banks. Not quite 2 years ago, the Central PA Food Bank, through a local food grant program, connected me with Safe Harbor, a nonprofit housing service in Carlisle. Since then, each week, representatives from Safe Harbor have come to the farm and collected my close-dated milk each week to give their residents and people at the Salvation Army Carlisle. This grant helped my small farm cover expenses of jugs and labels for extra bottled milk that would otherwise go to waste. It helped prevent the waste of that short shelf life product, and most importantly, it put 13 essential nutrients, wholesome whole milk, into the hands of people in need. In January, I was told there was going to be a freeze on that grant program, and they understood if I could no longer donate. But I continued the relationship I had started because I knew the impact that I had. This winter was lean, and I lost costs that I couldn't afford to lose. But I am proud of the products that I produce on the farm with my grandmother, my mother, and my 2 sons by my side. I am proud of our community, and I am grateful for an administration that prioritizes good local programs and relationships and community partnerships that make everyone better. I want to be able to continue the impact that I've already had, that is from these grant programs that for dairy farmers to help me cover the expenses and give back to my community. Thank you, Governor Shapiro, for letting me tell my story.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I mentioned before Chris Hoffman, the leader of the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, a great leader for our farmers, someone who's taught us a whole lot, and someone who's managed to take the plight of Pennsylvania farmers and bring it into the halls of power in our state government and get a whole lot of stuff done. And so, Chris, it's my pleasure to have you here today. We appreciate your leadership. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Governor Shapiro, and wow, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you can do it.
Well, it is an honor to be here representing over 27,000 farmers across Pennsylvania, whose main job is to make sure that our friends and neighbors, our folks in the Commonwealth, have food to be able to have a nutritious and a healthy, balanced diet. You know, as we were talking about this earlier, and you think about children going to bed who are, hungry, 1 out of 5 children is really not something that we in Pennsylvania should accept, right? So we have to find ways to be able to make that not be the reality that some of the children have. And I appreciate Governor Shapiro and his administration and team, Secretary Redding, as agriculture has now become one of the pillars of economic development and growth in Pennsylvania. We really needed that. We needed that focus on agriculture to really bring us to a level where we have a say in how we can grow and how we can innovate. And the governor's budgets have really proven that he is in to win agriculture in Pennsylvania. I say we have the best farmers here in Pennsylvania anywhere in the country, and I will stand by that because I know what our farmers are doing and every day to try to make sure that we don't have food security issues. You know, we've talked about the Farm Bill. We talked about the needs of what we need in Pennsylvania. And I know that Governor Shapiro and Secretary Redding and all the folks from the General Assembly, we're working really hard because that Farm Bill is so important to the livelihoods of our farmers and being stability and making sure that we have the safety nets and the ability to move forward. And so having funding coming from USDA, Secretary Rollins, who is our new Secretary of Agriculture for the United States, she is really trying to, as we think about how we move forward in the future, really trying to be a good advocate for farmers. And we're working with her as we work to get a new farm bill in place to be able to have these programs permanent, right? Permanent programs like this that we can rely on, and that our farmers, those 200 farmers that are relying on where their products are going to go, that they'll be able to get paid for them, and that they'll have a market that they're planning on. And so we're here to work with the governor and his administration as we think about the future of Pennsylvania, how we curb hunger in Pennsylvania, and we're all about working as a team to make sure that we get everyone to that next level and to remove hunger from Pennsylvania. So it's my honor to be here and to work with your administration as we move forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Secretary?
Governor, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. This is the point in the program where I just say amen, right? It's been stated. I think the power of agriculture is in the food bank. I mean, every time I step in here, there's comfort, right? I know what this place does, right? But you can't have a charitable food system without a food system that's charitable. It doesn't work. So this program, the LFPA that we're talking about today, is one of the outgrowths of what we saw over the last 5 years from COVID, right? We figured out the fragility of this food system in the way that it's built. There are a lot of sort of challenges with it, right? Global supply chains, we see that on the tariff discussions today. We saw all these linkages broken. But what came out of that was the recognition that there's really an important resource in our community called a farmer that links that to a food bank that you see here on pallets. And we got really smart about that, right? And what did we see? We saw millions of pounds of food. We saw 200 farmers who had never been in that discussion before step in and provide the most essential products: meat, produce, milk, and other things. If you look at that list of where it came from across Pennsylvania, these are farmers who are, involved in their farm business every day, but they figured out, as we heard earlier, just so there's an emotional attachment to this, right? We are in the food business. So having people enjoy that, if they can access it, certainly at the grocery store, do it. If you can get it at the restaurant, do it. But if you need the charitable food system, it's there. And that is what we have in the LFPA, is what we have in the food bank across Pennsylvania. So a note of thanks to Joe and the food banks across Pennsylvania, across the nation who are part of this amazing sort of network. But thank the farmers, right? I am proud to have all the economic muscle of an industry. I'm proud of infrastructure and innovation. But I'm also really proud of people who step up and see what the needs are in a community and say, I can fix that. I can help solve that. And to the governor, I just want to say thank you. Yes, agriculture is important, but there's a recognition that's got a lot of sort of capacity to do really important things economically. But it also shows up in other really critical ways of our society, right? It's a functioning society to have a food system. It's a functioning society to have capacity to feed our own people. It's really important that we can grow that. It's important that we recognize the environmental benefits of agriculture, but also the contributing significantly to the quality of life in our neighborhood, right? That is important. So we stand here today very clearly stating our intentions. I appreciate the governor's leadership on this point. A contract's a contract, right? Trust is trust. And we entered this in good faith to deliver to the farms and to the food banks. There's two co-equal goals in the LFPA program. That's what I like about it. It's not lopsided. They're equal. It's a farmer and a consumer. And that is honored inside the LFPA program. So we want to honor that. We want to make sure that the farms and communities that are benefiting both in terms of delivering product but also receiving that product get what they are owed. So I appreciate the governor's leadership on this. I also appreciate where we live. I mean, everybody here thinks they're normal, right? I say it every time, when you look around the states, and this is where the partnership comes in, is that we have a state that's got an agricultural surplus system that set the stage for what we're talking about with the LFPA, right? We know how this works. It's built here. We have a state food purchase program that is really foundational to supporting our counties across Pennsylvania. We have the private giving that is part of this. So we have things that other states don't have, but it's built on a partnership with the private community, partnership with our state government, and a partnership with the federal government. And that partnership is critical, and in this case, it's not being honored. So we want to make that right. So Governor, thank you for raising this issue. We'll continue to work with our delegation and the administration, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the farmers are protected and those who are food insecure get what they deserve. Thank you. This is a partnership, as I say, it doesn't happen without the governor and the legislature, and you heard earlier Representative Fleming as an advocate, a friend, and a strong voice for those who are food insecure. Representative, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Governor. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I just want to say to everybody, welcome to the 105th Legislative District, which we're in right now. Thank you to Joe, the food bank. I've been here myself, my staff on numerous occasions to volunteer. We've provided some support to the food bank, and I want to thank the governor for his leadership. You know, just briefly, I was one of these kids who was hungry, and so this is why this is so important to me. Investments in our food bank and our charitable food system is so important to me because I was one of those kids who didn't have enough to eat going to bed. My family relied on food stamps and free and reduced lunch in order for me to get meals during the day. And like I say, fortunately for us, it was a temporary condition. We were able to work our way into middle income status, but those were hard times for myself, my family, my stepsisters, and my father and my stepmother. It was not easy. And what I'm most concerned about is with actions like this that the federal government is taking, they are literally taking food out of the mouths of kids all across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and all across the nation if this is not a priority. And I said this last week, I will continue to say it because it's true. This president, this administration does not respect the rule of law. They do not. We've seen examples time and time again. So I appreciate the governor having the courage to step up and say, no. You, the federal government, engaged in a contract to support our farmers, our growers, our producers, and you are going to follow through on that contract or there will be consequences. So, Governor, I appreciate your leadership because it's important. It's important that we draw a line in the sand. And, you know, unfortunately, we've seen that this president is extraordinarily transactional. And, you know, it doesn't work for us. When you're a representative of the federal government, you represent all of us, whether we voted for you, whether we didn't, whether anybody votes or doesn't. If they're here, you represent them in their interest. And I do not get, and I cannot abide, feeding hungry people not being part of the federal government's priorities. So I commend you, Governor, for having the leadership to step up. And I also commend you for, in your proposed budget, investing in our state food purchase program, putting more dollars into those programs, which, as Joe Arthur has said and many others have said, the need is greater than ever. Now is not the time for us to step back. Now is the time for us to lean forward, as all the folks are doing here in this room. And so as we continue to do that, I will always be an advocate to feed our hungry residents, especially children out there who can't fend for themselves. And you know, we need to take this and move forward. And with your action, and hopefully with the proposed budget that we can get behind, we will invest more in our charitable food programs. We will make sure that we feed hungry Pennsylvanians. And, you know, we will do right by the people who sent us here and who elected us to do this job. So thank you so much, Governor. I really appreciate your leadership again.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to take a few questions. I just hope you don't miss something here based on Representative Fleming's comments. He shared with you his life story. He shared with you that for a period of time, he and his family needed some assistance to eat. Thanks to Representative Fleming, who was the deciding vote, kids now get free breakfast in Pennsylvania schools. I want you to think about that. Life's, you know, that full circle moment in life. Representative Fleming experienced that in his life, came to Harrisburg determined to do something about it, and now kids fill their bellies for free in the morning when they get to school. That's remarkable what you've done, and we're grateful to you. Thank you. So we'll take a few questions from the media. Yes, Dennis.
I just want to be clear. So was it the Ag Secretary that rescinded that contract? Who did you get the letter from? And you're at this point saying you're appealing that decision, but if that doesn't go your way, then you would sue. Is that accurate?
The U.S. Department of Agriculture notified Secretary Redding that they were breaking the contract with Pennsylvania. By right, under federal law, we have a right to appeal that decision. Today, I directed the Secretary to appeal that decision. I'm hopeful that the U.S. Department of Agriculture will reconsider the tremendously negative impact their decision is having on Pennsylvania farmers and on our ability to feed hungry kids and hungry families. Should they not rescind that termination, then I reserve the legal options to be able to take further steps in order to compel them to act on this contract.
You are a lawyer. Does that contract allow them to just break it?
We do not believe so. We think they unlawfully broke this contract. We signed a 3-year contract for our farmers and for those who are hungry, and the federal government needs to honor it. Tom?
You talk about, like, you didn't do anything to try to reverse this. Who picks up the bill there? I mean, is it just the organizations, the farmers, or does you think the state needs to get involved if you guys find yourself in that situation?
Well, you heard one of the farmers talk about how this was roughly 10% of their market share, 10% of what they were counting on. We heard other estimates that this program accounted for even more, maybe 15%. You're blowing a hole in farmers' budgets, in their market share, by virtue of this illegal termination by the federal government of the contract with Pennsylvania. Our farmers are going to be hurting as a result of this. In addition to that, we have more people who will go hungry because the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank and others like it will not have as much product to be able to provide for those who are hungry. In terms of making that up, I want to be very clear about something. Central Pennsylvania Food Bank may figure out a way to fundraise more or find some grant from somewhere else. I don't know, Joe will have to determine if that's even a possibility. I don't know how farmers will make up this market share that they lost. And if the federal government continues on this path of slashing funding that states are counting on, whether for our farmers or for healthcare for folks who are poor or disabled, as they're proposing to do with these Medicaid cuts, the state cannot make up those cuts. People are going to suffer as a result of these policy decisions they're making in Washington. This is one example of a decision that they've made that I believe is illegal, but is going to have a profoundly negative impact on our farmers and on those who are hungry, and we're taking action to stop them.
What do you think about all the collateral damage from some of these decisions, whether it's this issue or other ones that we continue to see? A lot of people would say it's really beginning to pile up in states like Pennsylvania.
The Trump administration, in a matter of whatever it's been, about 2 months, has injected chaos into literally every hour of every day. They are tanking the stock market. They are offending our allies. They are closing down markets to farmers and businesses here in Pennsylvania. The price of goods, from eggs to cars, is on the rise because of the chaos that the Trump administration has injected into our economy. These tariffs are the dumbest economic decision I've ever seen a president make. He literally pushed a button to raise taxes and fees on Pennsylvania consumers and on all Americans. And as a result of all of this chaos, we are worse off right now. What I'm trying to do here today is protect our farmers from the attacks coming from the Trump administration and protect those who are hungry, who just want to feed their kids at the end of a day, from this decision by the USDA. This is common sense stuff. Help our farmers, feed those who are hungry. And for some reason, the Trump administration is doing the opposite of common sense, instead injecting chaos into people's lives every single day.
Governor, off topic with regards to the Bhutanese detained immigrants, does Pennsylvania have any recourse in that situation?
Here in America, we're home to about 100,000 Bhutanese, and here in Pennsylvania, we're the proud home of about 70,000 of them. And put a little bit more specifically, here in South Central Pennsylvania, roughly 40,000 or so Bhutanese live in this community. We welcome them here in Pennsylvania. They've been an important part of the social fabric and the economic fabric, the educational fabric, the cultural fabric of our communities. I want to make sure that anyone who's been rounded up by the federal government is given their full due process. And I expect the Trump administration to honor the law, to respect the law, and to ensure those who they've come in contact with receive due process.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, there were 2 new cases of measles reported in Erie County. What is the state doing in order to prevent that from spreading, and what is your partnership with the federal government?
We'll make sure Dr. Bogan gets back to you on those specifics, okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you. Joe, thank you.